Regarding the projects for the treaty, there were no projects for the treaty. There was a set of issues that were to be discussed and finally formulated. In general, I have said this many times before my visit to the USA and Alaska. We discussed this with the American negotiators. And after that, a list of possible agreements of 28 points was created. And as I have already announced publicly, it was sent to us on certain channels. We got acquainted with it. After that, there were talks in Geneva between the American delegation and the Ukrainian delegation. And as I understand it, they decided that all these 28 points should be divided into 4 separate components. In general, yes, we were given this information. In general, we agree that this can be based on future agreements. But it would be impolite of me to talk about some final options now, since there are none. Some things are of a fundamental nature. And in general, we see that the American side takes into account our position, which was discussed before Anchorage and after Alaska. Somewhere we absolutely need to sit down and seriously discuss some specific things. We need to put everything in a diplomatic language. We are still receiving calls for a ceasefire. There. If the Ukrainian troops leave the territory they are occupying, then the hostilities will cease. If they do not leave, we will achieve this by arms. That is all. Look, I will return to Kupyansk now. Let's start with the zone of responsibility of our city center. Where are the main events taking place? In the direction of Krasnoarmiysk and around the city of Dmitrov. Krasnoarmiysk and Dmitrov are fully encircled, as well as Kupyansk. 70% of the territory of Krasnoarmiysk is in the hands of the Russian armed forces. In the south of the city of Dmitrov, the enemy group is cut off. It spreads throughout the city and our troops move towards its planned destruction. And what is next? If you look at the map, you will see northeastern Krasnoarmiysk, then Komsomolsk, northern Krasnoarmiysk, Kupyansk, Slavyansk, and a little further to the northeast is Seversk. In Komsomolsk, hostilities are taking place. A significant number of buildings have been liberated by our troops and the advance continues. As for Seversk, which is located in the northeast, our troops have approached this city from the east, from the south and from the north. Active hostilities are taking place out of, I think, 8,000 buildings. 1,700 are in our hands. And you see, if they have approached from the north, from the south, from the east, what is it all about? This is a very difficult situation for the Ukrainian side, for the Ukrainian armed forces. If you look to the north, Seversk out of 8,000 buildings, 1,000 out of 8,000, I think, yes, I said Seversk out of 8,000, 1,700, and further to the north, if you look, the Seversk group is working there. Volchansk is almost entirely in our hands. This is in the Kharkov direction. Now look at what is happening in the Zaporizhzhia region. The Zaporizhzhia region was built by the enemy 10 years ago, in 2014, and then it was strengthened. Now it is a stronghold against which our Dnieper group, it is a serious stronghold, and our Dnieper group works there. In some areas, thanks to the heroism of our guys, they break through the defense in important areas. But that is not the point. The point is that our other group, Vostok, has broken through the enemy's defense and is moving at a rapid pace to the north of the Zaporizhzhia region, to the border between the Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. And it is moving at a very rapid pace. We have already reached the town, Gulyai Pol. This is an important logistical point. We have already walked 1.5 to 2 kilometers to Gulyai Pol. Will they take it now or not? But they will definitely go further. What does it mean? It means that the troops of the Vostok group almost cover the entire Ukuriep region from the north. On the one hand, our Dnieper group stands against them, and the Vostok group bypasses them from the north. This may lead to the collapse of the front on this region. This is where the difference between those in the west who want to achieve peace as quickly as possible, even at the cost of some mutual concessions, including from the Ukrainian side, because if everything that happened in Kupyansk will take place in the areas I have just mentioned, then the collapse of the front will be inevitable. Someone wants to believe that the same Kupyansk on November 4th, I recall, the head of the Kiev regime said that in 5 to 7 days it will be in the hands of the armed forces of Ukraine. Now, as you know, the enemy group is completely liquidated there. The city is in our hands. On the left bank of the Oskol River, 15 more battalions, that is, 3,500 people. Some of our commanders say that some of the military in this region already look like homeless people. This is not a joke. Can you imagine that 3,500 people will be abandoned by food helicopters from our military ammunition? This is impossible. They have been in this state for more than a week. Now they are practically closed. Those in the West who understand what this may lead to insist on the cessation of hostilities as soon as possible, even if this requires some concessions from the Kiev regime. Because they understand that if the front is turned on separate areas, then the armed forces of Ukraine will lose their combat capability. They will lose the most combat-capable units, as is now the case in the Krasnoarmiysk region. Because one thing is to say that Russia is not going to attack Europe. It sounds funny to us, doesn't it? They never intended to. But if they want to hear from us, let us record it. There are no questions. It's just that there are people there, and I think they are not quite themselves, when they want to get something out of it publicly, or they are some kind of crooks. They publicly tell their people, their citizens, that Russia is preparing to attack Europe, and we need to immediately strengthen our defense potential. Either they serve the interests of the defense industry and private companies, or they are trying to raise their internal political ratings, taking into account the deplorable state of the economy and the social sphere. It's hard to say what they are guided by, but from our point of view, it's complete nonsense, it's a lie. Nevertheless, if the public is aware of this, if they have scared their citizens, if they want to hear that we are not going to do anything, and that we have no aggressive plans for Europe, then we are ready to record it as we see fit. Perhaps this makes sense, if we want to discuss and put some points in order in the interests of European security. Perhaps, yes, we have proposed this before. If our so-called Western partners want this now, then we are ready. We understand that we need to sit down and seriously discuss this. Every word matters. Or, for example, one of the documents mentions that we need to resolve the issue of strategic stability with our American partners. But for God's sake, are we against this? We have proposed this. We have also proposed the Obama administration to reach an agreement on certain issues. We heard a yes, and then, a month before the Obama administration left the White House, everything got stuck. Now we have another agreement, the SNOV3. It ends in February. But they do not want to do anything. We saw from these documents that there is a desire to return to these issues. Each of these issues is a separate area, a very serious one. Of course, we are ready for this serious discussion. And next week, the American delegation is expected to come to Moscow. Preparation for the real nuclear tests takes time. We cannot be in a situation when the US is tested and we have to prepare for it for another year and a half. Of course, we have to think about it. We did not say it, but we have to be ready for any development. And I assure you that we will be ready. As for the G7 or G8, we did not ask to go there. We were once invited to go there, and we worked there. It is a platform for agreeing on certain positions. I must say that, if you pay attention, even before the tragic events in the Ukrainian direction, I stopped going there. Did you notice that? Yes, I did. So when the events in Ukraine began, they said, well, we are not expecting you there, and thank God we went there. I do not remember who went there. I think the head of the government went there once. I refused for the first time, because I really could not come up with anything. I think it was at the time of the formation of the government after the election of the president. I think it was in 2012. But we never refused to make contacts. We are always open to interaction. But first of all, no one invites us there. I have not heard or received any official invitations. Secondly, we know how many members of the so-called Big Seven are members of this association. I have already mentioned it once. I do not quite understand why they are called the Big Seven. The number, the territory, the population, and the contribution to the world GDP are getting smaller and smaller. But it does not matter. They are still our important partners. In today's situation, I do not quite imagine how we will interact with them directly. You can imagine it yourself.